Night lighting is intended for general illumination during regular operations. Emergency lighting, on the other hand, is specifically designed for safety purposes during power outages or emergencies. Switching these two systems together can negate the purpose of emergency lighting, which needs to be available at all times during an emergency. Many jurisdictions have codes and standards that mandate emergency lighting to be separate and isolated from other lighting systems. This isolation is crucial to guarantee reliability when emergencies occur. Combining night and emergency lighting on the same switch could lead to confusion or delays in responding to emergencies. It is vital that emergency lighting can be immediately identified and used when needed. However, in some specific situations, there might be exceptions to the general rule. These exceptions usually come with strict conditions. Firstly, dual-use fixtures are an exception. Fixtures designed to function as both night and emergency lights can be used. However, it is imperative that the emergency lighting circuits within these fixtures are isolated and maintained separately from the night lighting circuits. This ensures that the emergency function remains independent. Secondly, redundancy is another consideration. If multiple emergency lighting systems are installed, providing backup in case of a system failure, switching between these redundant systems may be permitted. The key here is to ensure that the redundancy is adequate to cover any potential failure. Thirdly, specific code exemptions may exist. Certain local codes might allow the switching of night and emergency lighting under particular conditions. An example of this could be when a building management system controls the lighting and incorporates safeguards to maintain emergency lighting functionality. It is crucial to consult the local authority having jurisdiction to see if this exists. However, it is strongly advised to keep night and emergency lighting systems separate and avoid switching them together. This separation ensures that emergency lighting is always available when it is needed, and it also helps to ensure code compliance. Combining the functions of night and emergency lighting onto a single switch introduces potential failure points that can compromise safety. If the switch fails or is accidentally turned off, the emergency lighting may not function when required. Moreover, in an emergency situation, quick and reliable access to lighting is critical. Separate systems eliminate any confusion or delay caused by having to locate and operate a single switch that controls both types of lighting. Regular testing and maintenance of emergency lighting systems are essential to verify their proper operation. When night and emergency lighting are combined, testing and maintenance can become more complex and time-consuming. Separate systems allow for easier identification and resolution of any issues that may arise. Electrical codes, such as the National Electrical Code or NEC, provide detailed requirements for emergency lighting systems. These requirements address issues such as the type of power source, the duration of illumination, and the placement of lighting fixtures. Emergency lighting is generally required to provide a specific level of illumination for a minimum duration, such as 90 minutes, in the event of a power outage. This ensures that occupants have sufficient time to safely evacuate the building. Power sources for emergency lighting can include batteries, generators, or uninterruptible power supplies. The choice of power source depends on factors such as the size of the building, the criticality of the functions performed within the building, and the available budget. Emergency lighting fixtures must be located in strategic areas throughout the building, such as exit corridors, stairwells, and assembly areas. The fixtures must be designed and installed to provide adequate illumination without creating glare or shadows that could hinder visibility. Regular inspections and testing of emergency lighting systems are crucial to ensure their proper operation. These inspections should be conducted by qualified personnel and should include checks of the power source, the lighting fixtures, and the control system. Any deficiencies identified during inspection should be promptly corrected to maintain the integrity of the system. In addition to meeting code requirements, it is important to consider the specific needs of the building occupants when designing and installing emergency lighting systems. For example, buildings with elderly or disabled occupants may require higher levels of illumination or longer duration of illumination to ensure their safe evacuation. Buildings with hazardous materials or processes may require specialized emergency lighting systems to prevent accidents or injuries. Proper design, installation, and maintenance of emergency lighting systems are essential for ensuring the safety of building occupants during power outages or other emergencies. By following code requirements and considering the specific needs of the building, you can create an effective emergency lighting system that will protect lives and property. In the United States, the National Electrical Code, or NEC, contains specific requirements for emergency lighting systems. These requirements are found in Article 700 of the NEC. Article 700 covers the installation, operation, and maintenance of emergency electrical systems, including emergency lighting. The NEC defines an emergency electrical system as a system intended to supply power automatically to designated areas and equipment in the event of failure of the normal power supply. This system is designed to minimize danger to human life that could result from power failure. Article 700.12 of the NEC specifies the permissible sources of power for emergency systems. These sources include storage batteries, generators, and uninterruptible power supplies, or UPS. The NEC provides detailed requirements for each type of power source, including requirements for capacity, reliability, and maintenance. Article 700.16 of the NEC addresses the illumination requirements for emergency lighting systems. The NEC requires that emergency lighting provide adequate illumination to allow for safe egress from the building. The level of illumination must be maintained for a minimum of 90 minutes in the event of a power outage. The NEC also specifies the locations where emergency lighting is required, such as exit corridors, stairwells, and assembly areas. Article 700.26 of the NEC covers the testing and maintenance requirements for emergency lighting systems. The NEC requires that emergency lighting systems be tested regularly to ensure their proper operation. The testing must be conducted by qualified personnel and must include checks of the power source, the lighting fixtures, and the control system. The NEC also requires that any deficiencies identified during testing be promptly corrected. In addition to the NEC, other codes and standards may also apply to emergency lighting systems. These codes and standards may be adopted by state or local jurisdictions and may include additional requirements for emergency lighting. It is important to consult with local authorities to determine the specific codes and standards that apply to emergency lighting in your area. When designing and installing emergency lighting systems, it is essential to comply with all applicable codes and standards. Failure to comply with these requirements can result in fines, penalties, and potential liability in the event of an accident. By following the requirements of the NEC and other applicable codes and standards, you can ensure that your emergency lighting system is safe, reliable, and effective in protecting building occupants during power outages or other emergencies. Furthermore, consider the specific types of lighting to use. Firstly, LED, or light-emitting diode, fixtures are energy efficient and long-lasting, making them a popular choice for emergency lighting. They provide bright, reliable illumination and can operate on battery power for extended periods. Secondly, incandescent fixtures are an older technology but can still be used for emergency lighting. However, they are less energy efficient than LED fixtures and have a shorter lifespan. Thirdly, fluorescent fixtures are another option for emergency lighting, but they are also less energy efficient than LED fixtures and require a ballast to operate. When selecting emergency lighting fixtures, it is important to consider the following factors. Firstly, light output should be considered. The fixtures must provide adequate illumination to allow for safe egress from the building. Secondly, power consumption should be considered. The fixtures should be energy efficient to minimize the drain on the power source. Thirdly, the lifespan should be considered. The fixtures should have a long lifespan to reduce the need for frequent replacements. Fourthly, the environmental conditions should be considered. The fixtures must be able to withstand the environmental conditions in the area where they are installed, such as temperature and humidity. The proper placement of emergency lighting fixtures is crucial to ensure their effectiveness. The fixtures should be located in strategic areas throughout the building, such as exit corridors, stairwells, and assembly areas. The fixtures should be spaced evenly to provide uniform illumination. The fixtures should be positioned to avoid creating glare or shadows that could hinder visibility. In addition to emergency lighting fixtures, other components may be required for an emergency lighting system. These components include, firstly, batteries should be considered. Batteries are used to power the emergency lighting fixtures in the event of a power outage. The batteries must be sized to provide adequate power for the required duration of illumination. Secondly, a generator should be considered. Generators can be used to provide backup power for emergency lighting systems. Generators are typically used in larger buildings or facilities where a longer duration of emergency power is required. Thirdly, a transfer switch should be considered. Transfer switches are used to automatically switch the emergency lighting system from the normal power source to the backup power source in the event of a power outage. Fourthly, control panels should be considered. Control panels are used to monitor and control the emergency lighting system. Control panels can provide information on the status of the power source, the lighting fixtures, and the control system. Regular testing and maintenance of emergency lighting systems are essential to ensure their proper operation. The testing should be conducted by qualified personnel and should include checks of the power source, the lighting fixtures, and the control system. Any deficiencies identified during testing should be promptly corrected. Maintenance activities for emergency lighting systems include, firstly, battery replacement should be considered. Batteries should be replaced periodically to ensure their reliability. Secondly, fixture cleaning should be considered. Fixtures should be cleaned regularly to remove dust and debris that could reduce their light output. Thirdly, wiring inspection should be considered. Wiring should be inspected regularly for damage or corrosion. Fourthly, system testing should be considered. The entire system should be tested periodically to ensure that all components are functioning properly. Emergency lighting systems are an essential part of a building safety plan. By following the requirements of the NEC and other applicable codes and standards, and by performing regular testing and maintenance, you can ensure that your emergency lighting system is safe, reliable, and effective in protecting building occupants during power outages or other emergencies. Let's delve deeper into the practical implications of switching night and emergency lighting and examine scenarios where exceptions might be considered, always keeping safety and code compliance at the forefront. One of the primary reasons to avoid switching night and emergency lighting together lies in the potential for human error. Imagine a situation where an untrained individual unfamiliar with the electrical system accidentally switches off the circuit controlling both the night and emergency lights. In the event of a power outage, this could leave occupants in complete darkness, creating panic and hindering safe evacuation. Therefore, maintaining separate and clearly labeled circuits for emergency lighting minimizes the risk of such accidental shutdowns. Consider a hospital environment where uninterrupted power is crucial for life support equipment and critical care areas. In such settings, emergency lighting is not just a convenience but a life-saving necessity. Switching night and emergency lighting together could introduce a single point of failure that could compromise the entire emergency power system. Therefore, hospitals and similar critical facilities typically adhere to the strictest standards for emergency lighting separation and redundancy. While the general rule is to keep night and emergency lighting separate, there might be specific scenarios where exceptions could be considered, but only under strict conditions and with careful consideration of safety and code requirements. One such scenario could involve the use of dual-purpose fixtures, as previously mentioned. These fixtures are designed to provide both normal illumination and emergency illumination from a single unit. However, the key to using these fixtures safely is to ensure that the emergency lighting circuit is completely isolated from the normal lighting circuit. This isolation can be achieved through the use of separate wiring, power supplies, and control mechanisms. Additionally, the fixture must be clearly labeled to indicate its dual purpose and the presence of an independent emergency lighting circuit. Another scenario where switching might be considered is in buildings with sophisticated building management systems or BMS. These systems can automatically monitor power conditions and switch to emergency lighting mode in the event of a power outage. However, even with the BMS, it is crucial to have redundant systems in place to ensure that the emergency lighting will function reliably. This redundancy could include a separate battery backup system for the emergency lights, as well as regular testing and maintenance of the BMS to verify its proper operation. In some cases, local codes may allow for switching of night and emergency lighting under specific conditions. However, it is essential to thoroughly research and understand the applicable codes before considering any such switching. These codes typically include stringent requirements for redundancy, testing, and maintenance to ensure that the emergency lighting system will function as intended. Regardless of whether switching is permitted or not, it is always recommended to consult with a qualified electrical engineer and the local authority having jurisdiction before making any changes to the emergency lighting system. These professionals can provide valuable guidance on code compliance, safety best practices, and the specific needs of your building. Furthermore, regular testing and maintenance of emergency lighting systems are crucial to ensure their proper operation. These tests should be conducted by qualified personnel and should include checks of the power source, the lighting fixtures, and the control system. Any deficiencies identified during testing should be promptly corrected to maintain the integrity of the system. In addition to the technical aspects of emergency lighting, it is also important to consider the human factors involved. Occupants of the building should be familiar with the location and operation of emergency lighting systems. Emergency evacuation plans should include instructions on how to use emergency lighting to safely exit the building in the event of a power outage or other emergency. Training exercises and drills can help to reinforce these plans and ensure that occupants are prepared to respond effectively in an emergency situation. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to switch night and emergency lighting depends on a variety of factors, including the specific needs of the building, the applicable codes and standards, and the potential risks involved. However, the general rule is to keep these systems separate to ensure the safety and reliability of emergency lighting. By carefully considering the factors discussed above and consulting with qualified professionals, you can make an informed decision that will protect the lives and property of building occupants.